Hello and good evening to our city webinar on Amkor Technologies. We decided to start just a couple minutes late because we still have a few people joining. But I wanted to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for joining tonight's session. By way of introduction, my name is Mike Faust. I'm one of the 3 deputy city managers here for the city of Peoria. This particular webinar is being produced live, so what you're watching now is live, but we are also recording this. So if you want to go back and view it, or if there are members of the community that did not have the opportunity to participate today, they will be able to see a recorded version, and I'll have some more information on that a little later in the presentation. In preparation for this, I just want to spend a couple minutes on this because this is a webinar where we will share information out. You do not have the ability to actively work the chat or ask questions, but what we did is we've assembled all the questions that we have seen, whether through social media, whether through direct communications to your council member's office. And there was about 75 or 80 questions that we've got. We assembled those questions and then ultimately built a slide deck of information to, one, make sure we're answering each of the questions you had, dispel any misinformation that's out there, and do our best to be transparent in providing full and accurate information in terms of this project and its impact or engagement with the particular community. So this presentation should take us, I'm going to say 35, 40 minutes, depending on how quickly we move through the content. And again, I'll have some more information on how to acquire the recording when it's over, and also some information if there's additional questions. We broke this conversation into 4 individual components. So the first one is the Amkor Technology Project. So we'll do our best to describe who Amkor is, what they do, what the project is, where the project is located, why it's located where it's at, provide context there. And we're going to zoom out a little bit, and we're going to look at Amkor as it relates to 5 North at Vistancia. There's a lot of misinformation out there about the impact or the engagement of these projects together, and we want to make sure we're providing full and accurate information on that. Then from there, we're going to zoom out one more time, and we're going to address some discussions and some questions we've gotten on Northwest Peoria broader, mainly around traffic and traffic implications. Lastly, we'll touch on schedule, and then we'll transition our way out of this evening. So again, I appreciate each and every one of you joining today's conversation and wanting to learn more about this exciting opportunity here in the community. So Amkor Technology. So as we zero in on the project, we've gotten a handful of questions of who is Amkor Technology? So Amkor is a global company with a headquarters here in Tempe. They were founded in 1968, and it was a $6.5 billion organization with 30,000 employees worldwide. You'll hear this project site referred to as an OSAT, which is an outsourced semiconductor assembly and test facility, and we'll get a little more into that as this conversation continues. You'll also hear say the scope of this project. It's 1 to 2 phases. It can be up to up to 500,000 square feet and as many as 2,000 employees. And given the limited time we have here for this discussion, I would encourage you, if you have a desire to learn more about the project, the agreements between the city and Amkor, just overall what Amkor does, there is a council session that was conducted on February 20th. There's a presentation in there. You can acquire that by going to the city's website under City Council meetings and go look at an archived version of that. I would encourage you to go back and view that. There's a lot of great and meaningful information there that will help you learn more about this. So we've gotten questions of what does Amkor do? A lot of people are, when we hear semiconductors, a lot of people just aren't familiar with the technology or how the technology is produced. This image depicts what Amkor does and does not do in a very broad sense. And I specifically call out this slide because when we see the wafer fab and the wafer image located on the left side of the screen, Those are products that are manufactured at facilities like Intel and like TSMC. And so those processes are very specific to those. They're creating what is called the wafer. It's taking silica and making these conductive plates that require a lot of processing and a lot of chemicals. This Amkor facility is not producing those wafers. So I think a lot of times when we hear semiconductor supply chain and we're hearing things on the news about these types of products, our mind goes to, well, is this a TSMC plant? No, it's part of the supply chain, but it's not a one-for-one comparison to what is being built at TSMC or what exists at Intel. Those are very, very different processes. What actually happens in the Amkor process, they start their base product is that wafer, that is all those small little chips. They're gonna cut those chips off. They're gonna ultimately do a series of subsequent processes where they package and assemble semiconductors and microelectronics to it, and then they conduct that assembly process and then ultimate testing. So where this is part of the overall life cycle of a semiconductor manufacturing process, it is very, very different than the wafer fabs that are Intel and TSMC. We've received a lot of questions about where will Amkor be located. So this map is a conceptual development map of 5 North at Vistancia. And Amkor is specifically a 55-acre project site within the broader 320-acre project overall. So if you look at this particular map, El Mirage is on the left side of the map running north and south. Lone Mountain Parkway bounds the north end of the park, kind of the community where you see the blue and red lines. And then you can see down on the southwest corner, that white boxed out area, that's where the Safeway is. So that's the corner of Vistancia Boulevard and El Mirage. So that gives you some context of where this is. The property is located off of El Mirage. It's about 3/8 of a mile from any of the single family homes that are currently existing. And so that's where it's located. We've heard a lot of folks say, well, this is displacing, or we will no longer see the planned retail. That's not an accurate statement. This is in the employment section of the 5 North at Vistancia. And I'll touch a little bit on the zoning for this particular area. So we've heard a lot of conversation. A lot of folks say, why here? Why this particular location? I think one of the questions and comments I saw was, you could throw a dart in any direction and hit desert, and why would you build it here? And the truth of the matter is that all that desert you see that runs along the 303 or even the 303 and Lake Pleasant Parkway, that's all part of the Arizona State Land Trust and is not currently available to market. So that land still is not entitled. It needs to be auctioned. And that land is not on the market for projects such as this. This 55-acre site, specifically this portion of the 5 North at Vistancia, was specifically geared towards employment. And where Amkor or an advanced manufacturing facility may have not been the original intended use, since 2003, the zoning for the broader Vistancia Master Plan community has always contemplated some variation of employment, commercial use in this area. And I'll touch more on that in a moment. But it is important to note that the zoning for this has been in place for an extended period of time. And each time the developer has come through the Planning and Zoning Commission to the City Council for amendments and updates to that zoning through that PCD, whether it was 2003 or as early as 2023, that our council upheld and reaffirmed the uses of this property. I've heard a handful of questions and read some comments from folks to say, well, given this land designation, well, what if Amkor wasn't going there? Could the developer have done a contract with a large industrial user with smokestacks? And the answer to that is no, they couldn't, because where the zoning is permitting commercial and this advanced manufacturing application, it does not permit heavy industrial use and smokestacks and those types of things. I think I read another question where somebody said, well, if the Safeway was to close down, could Amkor buy that property and build another facility? And the answer is not without going through rezoning, they couldn't. So at that point, you would have community engagement. You would have public meetings and discussions. And so again, the property that this project is going on is zoned, has been zoned for these particular applications. And I'll touch more on the overall use of the community and the map and what those other colors mean in some later slides. Moving forward, I want to zero in now. If the last slide was where the Amkor project is located in the overall context of 5 North of Vistancia, I'll zero in now to the specific project site. And I want to address just a couple of things here. So what you have on the screen now is a conceptual image. This is an image that has been shown both in our council meeting on February 20th, and it's been passed around in the media and in social media as well. And so a few things to note. Number one, I'll say the white colored building. So people say, well, this doesn't fit the look and feel. Please, this is just a conceptual image to give an indication of what the site will look like. It is important to note that as part of the purchase and sale agreement for the land, as part of the site planning process, Vistancia has their own design guidelines. And it is important to note that Amkor, this project site, must go through Vistancia's design guideline review to make sure that the material selection, the color selection, the landscaping, all fit the look and feel of the master plan community. All of this has been very well thought out. The folks that have built Vistancia have done a phenomenal job designing this 7,600 acre master plan community. And in this concept of this 5 North of Vistancia, they contemplated these types of commercial and advanced manufacturing and installations in this area, all with the desire to have the same look and feel throughout the entire community. So I feel very confident knowing that we will get a consistent look and feel for this project as we have throughout all of the Vistancia proper. So let me address a couple of other things that I've seen. I think I've seen some communications, well, you're going to build a 4-story facility here, and I've heard others refer to it as a 5-story building. And in reality, what we're looking at is a series of buildings in a singular site. 55 acres is a sizable location. And the proposed site plan, as we know it now, indicates production buildings roughly 35 feet tall. And to put that in perspective, the building, the Fry's that's being constructed up on the corner of Lone Mountain and El Mirage, or the Safeway that exists at Vistancia and El Mirage, those buildings are about 35 feet tall. So to put it in the broader context, from a height standpoint, the production building should match that look, feel, and size of those properties north and south. I will note there is an office building located on the property that's intended to be a scotch taller. That's currently projected at about 40 foot tall. And the tallest building on site is currently projected at 54 feet tall. To put that in perspective, to give you a point of reference, the Vista Winds property, which is, I guess, southwest corner Vistancia, El Mirage, that building is 60 feet tall. So just to give some point of comparison, you've got buildings out there that are taller than these ones, and these ones are designed to fit the look and feel of the community. So we've got a couple other questions. Will the landscape fit the look and feel of the area? And the answer to that is yes. The same landscape planning has to go into, and the same landscaping planning and approvals have to go through the Vistancia Design Committee. We've had some questions about what type of additional outreach or communication will there be with this project. Specifically, the site plan review process requires a public outreach. So as the site plan comes in and it's being reviewed, there is a public notification that goes out to inform people so we can share with you where we are in the process, but more importantly, what the latest look and feel of the buildings are and what that site looks like. We have had some people, and there was a specific request that the council not permit the planning and community development team to do their job and do the administrative review, but that these reviews be approved solely by the council. We hear you. We hear the importance of getting the look and the feel and everything correct. So we're cognizant of that, and it's important to us to be able to show the community that a lot of thought has gone into this, a lot of detailed work, and that the Vistancia guidelines will be met and the look and feel will be maintained and the project will be done with a high level of respect for the broader community. So you have our commitment on that. I want to shift now from the site. So we talked about where the building is to a little more detail on the site. I want to talk about some of the environmental and utility questions that we've received. Excuse me. So there's been a handful of questions, and I can tell you, having worked intimately on this project now for the better part of 8 months, a lot of energy and effort, probably more energy and effort, has gone into this aspect of this project because of the importance of environmental and the importance of water and water security. So first and foremost, I'll highlight the fact that this facility, from a production standpoint, by our agreement, must run on reclaimed wastewater. So that means water that comes through the sewer is treated at the wastewater treatment plant, is then put out as reclaimed water, which is non-drinkable, will be utilized for this production. So that's an important note. That is a very wise use of that water resource. Secondly, we've gotten some questions around the water demands. The facility will utilize in each phase of the project 200,000 net gallons per day. And I want to be specific what that means. So for each phase, it will utilize 1 million gallons of water per day, which sounds significant, and it is. Now, the key to that, though, is we get 80% return from the facility, and that 80% then is cleaned and put back into the recycled loop. So when you have 1 million gallons going into the production, 80% return, clean, put back into the system, you have a net effect of 200,000 gallons a day. That's important to note because, like, even in our residential planning, we only plan on 40% return because the majority of water usage in the system is actually landscaping and irrigation, right? Only 42% of the water that's supplied to the broader community comes back to the wastewater treatment plant, where in this facility, we're actually planning for an increased flow, which allows for a very responsible use of cleaning that water, putting it back into the recycled system. Some folks would say, well, water is precious, right? It's a finite, it's not a commodity, it's a finite resource. And I want to stress this point that we have a phenomenal water resources team here in Peoria, and the water infrastructure and the planning and the details that have gone into this are quite impressive. To that point, when they started to view the changes in the economy the last couple of years, and they saw really the TSMC project, they started to plan for some of these larger water users. So in actuality, the team had programmed and planned on as much as 3 million gallons a day for this project to make sure that we were allocating water in the area. We were still safe from our 100-year designated water source, that we make sure we're still solid with our water planning. And so I feel very comfortable the team has been responsible for that and has worked diligently with Amkor. And Amkor has been extremely responsible and responsive to these asks. That's all important information. Last topic on the wastewater is just highlighting that Amkor must treat their waste streams per federal and municipal requirements. This is important because some people have said, well, we're worried about, this is an advanced manufacturing facility, in the community. And these federal and municipal requirements are stringent, and there is a lot of expectations placed on Amkor and a lot of expectations on the city to monitor that use. And so I feel very comfortable and confident in saying that the right protections are in place, the right provisions are being made, and the right oversight will be in place to make sure that this is successful. One question I really want to highlight for this discussion is some questions we got really around reclaimed water rates and what this could possibly mean for the Trilogy Golf Course. And so I just want to touch on that real quickly because we don't foresee this having any impact on the reclaimed water rates in the next 10 years plus. And part of that reason being is we're working simultaneously to support this project, connecting the output of two of our wastewater treatment plants, our Beardsley plant, which is located just south of this site, and our Jomax plant, which is in closer proximity to this site. We're connecting those two together. And it is important to note when those two systems are connected together, they'll be able to produce upwards of 9 million gallons a day. And so relative to the Trilogy golf course, at present, what a lot of folks may not know is Trilogy is maintained with reclaimed water part of the year, but the water demands in the summer currently can't keep up with reclaimed water. And we actually water Trilogy golf course with some potable drinking water to help augment that system. And so by default, this project is enabling not only the utilization of reclaimed water for the project site, but is also encouraging the city to finish the connection of these two wastewater plants, which increases the flow of reclaimed water to the community and the availability of reclaimed water for irrigation and production projects such as this. Another topic that has come up is processing chemicals. So there's no doubt all advanced manufacturing facilities use some level of processing chemicals. And I touched earlier on some of the nuances between, a TSMC or an Intel as a wafer fab versus, this bump probe, these OSAT outsourced semiconductor assembly and test facilities. And although there is chemicals involved in the processing, they are nowhere near what exists inside of a wafer fab. I can tell you that our fire team and our fire marshal has reviewed the list of chemicals. They've raised no concerns, but I will highlight there's probably two big tasks still left to do. Number one is, as the design of the building goes on, what does storage look like? What does proper precautions look like? That's one. I think the second one is relative to any physical disposal, right? Making sure the proper processes are in place for that. So those things will happen through the building design. But they're things that we've touched on the high level information thus far, and no concerns have been raised. Another issue that's been brought up is noise. Some of the community said, well, you're putting an advanced manufacturing facility near our community. What does this mean in terms of noise? And it's important to note that the commercial noise ordinance requirements will be in effect. That's 70 decibels daytime, 65 decibels in the evening, and that is measured 50 feet from the property line. And so there are requirements, they will be enforced. And lastly, we've had questions of what this means about power. What does it mean for power lines? And so to that point, APS has shared with us and with the project owners that there is availability of redundant power in the area. So that is not a concern. And based on the projected power demand, they expect that no overhead transmission lines are necessary. So that means we will not be running overhead transmission lines into the area. The power would be brought underground, much like it would be to your local community. So we spent the first portion of this conversation really zeroed in very intently on the project site. So now I'd like to zoom out a little bit and talk about Amkor as it relates to the broader 5 North at Vistancia project. So what you have in front of you here, what you have here is the conceptual map for the 320 acres that make up the 5 North at Vistancia. And I touched on the peach colored a second ago, which depict exactly where the Amkor facility is, which shown here is D15 and D16, 55 acres. You'll notice that there's some peach color directly below that. That's intended for employment use as well, office, other places that bring employment to this area. As we move north into the project site, you see the brown, 3 brown square parcels. Those are multifamily units. Those are planned to be the apartments that you heard so much about last summer. And so that's where they'll be located. If we transition west of that into the yellow area, this is also multifamily, but it's less dense, meaning there's less units per acre than there are in the brown. If you transition south of the yellow into the other peach and the green, that is the American Leadership Academy project that you may have heard about. This is a public charter K through 12, and I'll highlight that in a few minutes on another slide. As we move to the north end of the project site, you see the orange. And so in the left corner that you see the hard corner of El Mirage and Lone Mountain Parkway, that is the Fry Shopping Center that is currently being constructed. And if I transition east of that to the other orange parcels, that is the upscale amenity area that so many people have expressed desire for. So highlight a couple of things. So the first and most important thing is that the Amkor project site, if anything, enables and helps this come to fruition. It doesn't prohibit it. Like I've seen communication, I've seen questions that say, now we're not getting what we were promised as a community. And in all reality, the Amkor project and employment centers at 5 North at Vistancia help enable the restaurants to come. Because what we see in the restaurant business is that one meal alone is not enough to open a business. They really have to have lunch and dinner. They need to have breakfast and lunch. They need to be able to get 2 or 3 turns on those tables in order to make enough revenue to make those businesses successful. So we see this employment play in the 5 North of Vistancia as an enabler to help this happen. Now, some folks have said, hey, could you share with us the names and the timing? And the answer is, not yet. And I just had a conversation with the developer the other day. The project is still intended to move forward. They're working diligently to make it happen. They're excited to make it happen and to deliver the vision in which they've constructed it. It's a fantastic vision. The city is looking for opportunities on how we can come in and help partner and enable it to make it happen sooner. But for where they are right now, it's premature for them to be able to communicate any specifics. It's premature for them to be able to give an exact timeline. But we're hopeful that that happens sooner rather than later, and bringing the density through employment and the density through the multifamily apartments is just part of activating and making that happen. Sorry. I want to touch on briefly, because a lot of folks have asked questions about the American Leadership Academy. So where the high-end retail is located on the north end of 5 North of Vistancia, American Leadership Academy is located in the southwest corner of that. And I want to start with just a couple of questions that we've gotten, and I'm not going to go into full detail on the full execution of this project. I think it would be great to come back and maybe do another one of these specifically on this project, because I think it's such a fantastic thing. But I want to touch on a couple of key components. The first of which, because there's some confusion in the city's role with planning schools. Like at the end of the day, the city really doesn't have a role to play inside of the broader unified school district and their construction and operation of schools. So in this particular area, it's Peoria Unified School District has that responsibility. But we want to be good partners in that. We want to continue to bring forth projects. We want to bring forth solutions to help them do that, whether that solutions are planning for land or those solutions are, just helping those projects advance. This particular parcel of land was always contemplated for a school. And although the original intention and hope was a Peoria Unified School District high school, for a multitude of reasons that we won't get into here, that just hasn't happened. So we were excited when American Leadership Academy came to the table with a public charter school, a K through 12 option for offering families of Vistancia an alternative. They're targeting 2,400 students there. 1,200 of those will be in the high school. This is a fantastic thing because there is a need for schools. The community continues to grow. And American Leadership Academy has got a track record of successful schools throughout Arizona. I believe this will be their 18th or 19th project, and it's just a great addition to the community. This work is progressing quickly. I think construction drawings are being submitted this week. They're hoping to break ground mid to third quarter of 2024, and they're planning to open for the academic year 2025, 2026, which is absolutely fantastic. Additionally, what this allowed us to do is to think through what was always planned as a special use park. And some of you have asked questions. Is Amkor going to offer any amenities to the community, recreational amenities? And the answer was Amkor won't. This particular joint use park offers a great opportunity to deliver that. And I'll touch more on timeline here in a little bit, but In this particular slide, you can see a few key things. There's a softball field and a baseball field. There's a lighted multi-purpose sports field. There's a lighted ball court. There's playgrounds. And all of this will be available through regular park hours. And the joint use agreement portion of this means that where the development pays for the construction of the park, it is then dedicated to the city. The city will maintain it. But the school gets joint use of the fields, so they get to use the baseball and the softball fields. But the cool thing about that is the city is now working on an agreement with ALA to get use of the gymnasiums and their facilities as well. And if you live up in this area, you'll know that this is a key thing. How do we get some of these amenities up in this area? I think this is a great solution. You will also, all of this I'll touch on in a later slide. The goal is to stagger this. So the school would be done in the summer of 25. The park would be done in the summer of 26. The team has thought through and planned through a lighted pickleball court where it's built into the concept. We don't have the construction timeline for that, but it is built in. So we're bringing new amenities to the community through this special use park. Before leaving the 5 North at Vistancia, I did want to touch on traffic because a handful of people have asked questions about traffic and traffic planning and what have we done to think about it. So I'm going to touch on traffic as it relates to 5 North. And then in the next slide, I'm going to zoom out again and have a traffic discussion from the broader Northwest Peoria area. So first and foremost, let's touch on this. So each of these dotted lines is a conceptual alignment for a roadway. Now, it's more than conceptual. These plans have all been submitted to the city. The majority of them are already approved. And now the developer is working on the construction timeline. So before I get into all of the roadway, I'll touch on the first roadway. So if you look on the southwest corner, you see on El Mirage, you have 2 stoplights with red circles around them. Those red circles indicate that a planned signal is intended for there, but the circle's telling you it's not yet constructed. So in conjunction with construction of the ALA campus, you will have what is called Westward Skies. Westward Skies is the road that will exist just north of the heights, just north of the K through 12. That signal is currently being designed. That signal will be constructed and be in operation prior to the school opening. So the team's been working diligently to make sure that happens. It is critical that this happens. We're watching this very closely. So that first stretch of Westward Skies traversing from El Mirage east will be constructed along with the high school. The rest of the roadways will come online as the projects build out. So as Amkor is building out, its roadway system will be built. As other pieces of property are built out, those roadways will be built out as well. Before I touch on traffic generated by Amkor, I do want to touch on construction traffic because we've got a lot of questions about what will we do about the construction traffic. So I want to highlight there's 2 yellow stars on this exhibit. The one on the north end, that roadway that attaches to Lone Mountain right there, that is called Desert Cactus. That road is what we're planning on being the primary source of construction traffic. It is currently built out for 3/4 access, meaning you can turn right off of Lone Mountain into the property. You could turn left off of Lone Mountain on the property. You can turn right out of Desert Cactus onto Lone Mountain to go to the 303. We see this as the best and most viable pathway to bring construction traffic in without bringing that construction traffic onto El Mirage. Now, there's a lot of planning that's got to go into that, and I'm not saying there will never be a piece of construction traffic on El Mirage, but I want to tell you a lot of thought is being put into moving traffic in the area without being a burden to the community. Second, the star on the bottom of the image. So Westward Skies is planned to go from El Mirage past the K through 12, will wrap around and turn south. Now, right where that star exists now, due south of that is Arizona State Land. We have approached the State Land Trust and the State Land Department asking their permission to construct that road early. And what that would be is a connection off of Vistancia Boulevard into this site. We believe that returns value to their property. that sits due south of 5 North at Vistancia. But we believe that also returns value for this overall project site by directing traffic away from the Vistancia Al Mirage interchange and allowing people to get to 5 North without having to go through that intersection. Again, those are the plans, those are the discussions. I've learned a lot since being at the city, and one of the things I've learned is the amount of attention to detail and planning that goes into our transit system. We have thought through and contemplated roads decades into the future, but when it's time to construct, it does take several years to conceptually lay it out, to buy the property, to then construct. And so a lot of work remains to be done, but we're hopeful we can find alignment with Arizona State Land to construct that road early. So we started the conversation with the project site. We zoomed out to 5 North at Vistancia. And now I want to zoom out one last time before we wrap up this conversation to the broader Northwest Peoria, specifically as it relates to traffic. So a lot of the questions we've received from folks is, what are you doing about the traffic? What are we doing about the circulation system in this area? And I want to highlight two very, very specific projects for you. The first project I want to highlight is Al Mirage Traffic Interchange from the 303 north across the Beardsley Canal to connect into El Mirage that currently dead ends at the Joe Max alignment. I'm excited to announce that ADOT did a kickoff for the design concept report for that project just this week. The city hosted it here on site. And this road is very important for, I'll say, for two primary reasons. Number one, it adds a third access point to the community because we have Lone Mountain, which is an access point. We actually have, it'll be a fourth. We have got Lone Mountain, we've got Joe Max, we've got Happy Valley that transitions in, but then bringing in El Mirage offers a fourth entryway into the community. So that's huge from that standpoint. Number two, it provides a lending hand to Surprise because we find people have to traverse through our city to get to the northern parts of Surprise, and building out Al Mirage allows people to exit the 303, get to Happy Valley Road, and transition west into Surprise without clogging up the Vistancia Happy Valley intersection. It is important to note where we have launched the design concept report for this. This is a federally funded project. It is a big project. It will take time, but the fact that it is started and it is no longer conjecture, it is actual forward action, is a very, very positive thing. The second thing I'll highlight before we wrap up this look at traffic circulation in the area is two projects as it relates to Vistancia and Happy Valley Road. We know that this intersection needs attention. And so the team for fiscal year 25 will be presenting to City Council, in fact, tomorrow, an interim project that puts 2 turn lanes off of Happy Valley onto Happy Valley. That if you drive this intersection frequently, you know that loading and queuing that happens. It will go from a singular turn lane to a dual turn lane, dual lefts, and it will also add dual lefts to Happy Valley as you transition to northbound Vistancia Boulevard. That is just a transitionary step one. The real project that is out there is a complete realignment of Vistancia Boulevard, Happy Valley East and West, and 119th on the south. We have a design concept. The team is working through a more formal design concept report now to get into start looking at alignments and land acquisition. This project too has been worked with Arizona State in partnership with Arizona State Land, because as you can see from the map, they own the land north and south. So we just talked to them as early as Monday about building temporary roadway to allow through traffic while we reconstruct the intersection. A lot of details to go there, but we're very excited about this project. A lot of forethought, a lot of planning has gone into it. And so we're very thankful to be bringing this to fruition. I just want to step out one last time before we end our time together and talk about next steps. From a macro level schedule standpoint, we've touched on each of these, but I'll just drill them back home. July 2024, we're expecting the American Leadership Academy to break ground, right? So that construction will get started in the area. We expect with that, the roadway that sits north of it in the signal will get constructed. So by June of 25, when that opens for an August of 25 launch of the school year, that roadway, that signal, that campus is all in place. Looking forward a few months from there, September of 2025 is where Amkor, by their agreements with us, must break ground. They can always break ground a scotch sooner, but at the end of the day, they have to break ground by September of 2025. And so that's where it lays in the schedule. I had mentioned earlier that the joint use public park and all the amenities are slated to launch a year after the school opens. So we think August 2026 is that timeline. And there might be some movement in these dates, but based on what we know today, this is the most reasonable completion dates that we have. So with Amkor breaking ground in 25 and the park finishing in 26, we see Amkor construction taking roughly 2 years to complete, wrapping up in 2027. Now, I did miss a key point, and I don't want to skip over it, which is traffic for, and I'm sorry, I'm going to back up just a scotch because I don't want to miss this key point. You know, there were some questions about traffic generated by Amkor, and so I don't want to leave without driving home the point of we have analyzed this in some detail. We did analyze the fact that there was questions about truck movements, commercial truck movements, and given how small semiconductors are, we've talked to Amkor about this, and they're forecasting just 2 trucks in the morning and just 2 trucks in the afternoon. And so that commercial truck traffic is quite low. Additionally speaking, when they come online for their project, they'll only have about 300, 350 employees at initial launch. And so as you spread those across multiple shifts, that traffic demand in the area is not intended to be significant. The developer will be updating their traffic impact analysis throughout this project and as these various aspects of 5 North of Vistancia come online. And so we'll know more, and we'll build out the roads to make sure that they're capable of handling the demands. And it's important to know that we've thought through these details and we know the roads. It's just timing of when they come online. Sorry, I didn't want to miss that point, but you know, as the Amkor comes online in 2027, then you know we've planned through each of these steps. And then lastly, if there's a second phase of the Amkor construction, they have to be constructed by 2034, another 7 years out from the phase 1 launch. So as we bring our time to close, number one, I want to thank you for participating. It's a lot to take time out of your day. And I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share what the city staff have been working on and what the developer at Vistancia has been working on and what is a very favorable project for our community. I don't expect everyone to necessarily agree on these things, but I hope people are leaving this conversation with a sense of a lot of thought has been put into this. A lot of detailed planning goes into these things. A lot of oversight and checks to make sure these things are happening. So with that, again, I want to thank you for participating. This was a live conversation, but it has been recorded. So that recording will be posted no later than next week. We'll probably have it up faster than that, but I did want to just say we'll commit to no later than next Wednesday. If we didn't answer your question, again, we got 75 or 80 questions and we went through every single one of them, and I'm hopeful that we hit all of them. I mean, there's a couple I may have left out, and I apologize if I missed your specific question, but if you have to, please contact your council member's office. They'll be happy to relay those questions. We can package up answers and get there. And again, thank you so much for taking the opportunity to meet with us. Thank you for the opportunity to share the exciting economic development activities as well as the community planning activities that are going on. Again, thank you. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you.